Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien. My last video was on the verb avoir, to have. So I thought it was perfectly logical to now do a lesson on the verb être, to be. Because être and avoir are absolutely essential in language. You simply cannot avoid them. So in this lesson, we are going to learn the verb être, and we're also going to get familiar with some of its uses and characteristics. But before we move on, I have a little request. If there is anything you would like me to cover in future videos, so it could be skill-based, it could be grammar, it could be vocabulary, please do not hesitate to leave your suggestion in the comment section, because I really want to help people learn. So the best way to do that is for me to know what they want to learn. So feel free to guide me along the way. That will really inform the topics of my future videos, and I thank you for that. But anyway, back to the verb être. Alors, c'est parti. Like the verb avoir, to have, the verb être, to be, is a key verb in French, and for that reason it's very important to memorize how to conjugate it in the present tense. To do that, you need subject pronouns, here they are in French. Then you need to add the appropriate form of the verb for each of the pronouns. So it goes like this: je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, on est. Be careful, we have to pronounce the N here because est starts with a vowel, so we make the liaison between the pronoun and the verb. On est. Nous sommes, vous êtes. There again, the S of vous is going to be pronounced as a Z sound. Vous êtes. Ils sont, elles sont. You use the verb être to describe yourself or other people or things. For example, les girafes sont grandes. You can use it to describe a situation. C'est super. Or you can use it to describe or to talk about a profession. Je suis médecin. You will come across the verb être in many different common expressions. I've selected a few useful ones for you here. Être en train de, être en colère, être d'accord, être enrhumé, être en retard, être fatigué, être à l'heure, être en forme. Once you know these expressions, the only thing you have to do is to use the verb être in the correct form. For example, je suis en train de lire. I'm in the process of reading. Il est en colère. He's angry. Mes parents sont d'accord. My parents agree. So what would you say in this situation using the first person I? Je suis fatigué. And in this situation? Je suis d'accord. And this one? Je suis en retard. And this one? Je suis en forme. And finally, what would you say? Je suis enrhumé. Like the verb avoir, the verb être can be used as an auxiliary verb in compound tenses. It might sound a bit confusing, but it's not, because a compound tense is made out of an auxiliary verb and what we call a past participle, which is the past form of the verb. For example, aller, sorti, descendu. If I put the two together, I end up with a tense called the perfect tense, which is made out of the auxiliary verb in the present tense and a past participle. For example, je suis allé, I went. Ma sœur est sortie, my sister went out. Vous êtes descendu, you went down. If you understand that, then you can create all sorts of different tenses, because to form other compound tenses, the only thing you have to do is to change the tense of the auxiliary verb. For example, if I wanted to form the pluperfect tense, I would change the auxiliary verb from the present tense to the imperfect tense. And I would end up with sentences like j'étais allé, ma sœur était sortie, vous étiez descendu. One thing you need to remember about using être in compound tenses is that the past participles work like adjectives. So if the subject is masculine, the past participle will not change, but if it's feminine, I will need to add an E, like I would do with an adjective. And of course, in the plural, we need to add an S as well. This is not a video on compound tenses, but this is a question that I'm asked quite often, and it is, how do you work out which verbs take être or which verb take avoir as their auxiliary? The answer is that most verbs will use avoir as their auxiliary, and the ones that take être are related to movement usually. For example, to come, to go up, to go down, etc. There's a little tip that you can use as well to identify or to memorize the verbs that take être in compound tenses, and for that you need to meet Mrs. Van der Tramp. Mrs. Van der Tramp is an acronym comprising all the initial letters of verbs taking être as their auxiliary in compound tenses. So let's briefly go through those verbs. Monter, rester, sortir, venir, aller, naître, descendre, entrer, rentrer, tomber, retourner, arriver, mourir, partir, passer. Finally, reflexive verbs. If you don't know what they are, these are the verbs with a reflexive pronoun before them. Se lever, so for example, je me lève. In a compound tense, they will use the auxiliary être. So je me lève in the present tense will become je me suis levé. That's it for today. Please remember to download the summary for this lesson from my website. It's totally free. Also bear in mind that I use my own version of phonics in my lessons, so if you are interested, you can also download the handout from my website, or you can watch the video on the topic. But other than that, au revoir et à bientôt!